Hello and welcome to the second part of the chapter which we were doing, globalization and the Indian economy. Now, my name is Ashwin Joglikar and I am from Resonance PCCP division. So let us start with the next topic that was we were about to cover, that is liberalization. Now, as we discussed in the previous lecture about MNCs, multinational corporations, as well as a bit about globalization. Now, what is liberalization? Liberalization is again from the same word root, that is liber, L-I-B-E-R, which means to be free. Now, liberalization here means opening up of the markets or opening up of the trade restrictions or barriers set up by the government. Now, in India in 1991, under new economic reforms, we had tried to open up the markets for other companies, foreign companies to come and invest in India. So therefore, this was a period of liberalization in Indian economy, that is starting from 1991. Liberalization, that is governments use trade barriers or to increase or decrease the or regulate the flow of trade, foreign trade, and to decide what kinds of goods probably and how much of each would enter the markets or should come into a country. The Indian government after independence had put barriers so that to protect its own indigenous producers. Otherwise, what would have happened, that is, if Indian government would have allowed the foreign companies to come and invest in India just after independence, when we or our own companies were still in a very infant stage, growing stage, what would have happened possibly, that is, the Indian companies would not have been able to survive the upgraded technology which those MNCs would have brought in, and probably at the amount of the or the price at which the MNCs would have sold their products would have also been different as compared to the Indian companies producing probably the same products and using probably an outdated technology, and again selling those products at a higher price. So Indian companies would not even have survived the MNCs, the onslaught of the MNCs. So therefore, the government decided that for some initial years we should protect our industries so that they are able to grow and advance themselves, and then when the conditions are probably better, then we can open up the economy. So therefore, after independence had to put barriers to foreign trade and foreign investment. This was considered necessary to protect the producers within the country from foreign competition. Industries were just coming up in 1950s and 60s, and competition from imports at that stage would not have allowed these industries to come up. They definitely would have given up probably, or would have been wiped out by the MNCs. Thus, India allowed imports of only essential items or commodities. Now, starting around 1991, some far-reaching changes in policy were made in India. The government decided that the time had come for Indian markets to be opened up, or Indian producers to compete with producers around the globe. It felt that now it will help in improving the competition between foreign companies as well as the Indian companies, and definitely Indian companies will also have to live up to that competition. They will also be willing to do better for them or upgrade their own technology and other things. Felt that competition would improve the performance of producers within the country, since they would have to improve their quality. Now, barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to a large extent, and this meant that goods could be now imported and exported easily, and also foreign companies could come and invest in India or set up factories and offices here. Removing barriers or restrictions set up by government is known as liberalization. Okay. Now, the organization which promotes globalization all throughout the world is World Trade Organization, or WTO. Now, WTO is an intergovernmental organization that regulates international trade, and WTO was officially commenced on 1st January 1995 under Marrakesh Agreement signed by 124 nations on 15th of April 1994, replacing the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade and Tariffs, that is GATT, which commenced on 1948 and later dissolved due to biased policies in favor of the allied nations. Now, nearly 164 countries are member of this WTO as per 2016 data. Now, expectations of WTO from its member countries. What are the expectations of WTO from its members? First, bilateral agreements should be held between two countries for the smooth flow of trade between two countries. Import quotas should be reduced, that is government should put restrictions on imports to protect their local manufacturers. Export quotas, that is government put restrictions on exports to protect their local consumers. WTA wants all these to abolish import as well as export quota, that is government should restrict all those barriers which are there for a free flow of trade, and to have multinational agreement instead of bilateral agreements. So all these 3 points, that is what WTO wants or expects from its member countries. Now again, impact of WTO on Indian economy has been positive as well as negative, both. That is, positive is increased opportunities to have trade with other countries and availability of modern technology at reduced rates. Negative have been benefits only to the developing countries, that is again a cause of concern which has been raised by the by the developing as well as underdeveloped nations. That is, most of the policies are again favoring in WTO for the developed countries. Benefits to developing countries are very limited. Companies of developing countries would not be able to compete with international companies, can face closure, they can shut down, reducing employment opportunities in that particular country, that is like India, where what we are discussing now. And developing countries will interfere in the domestic economy of developing countries, that is developed countries will again start interfering. Prices of many essential and life saving drugs also may go up. Now looking at again impact of globalization, that is in India. Globalization and greater competition among producers, both local and foreign producers, has been of advantage to consumers, particularly the well-off sections, that is in urban areas. There is a greater choice before these consumers, who now enjoy a different variety of goods, improved quality and lower prices for several products. These people today enjoy much higher standards of living than was possible earlier for them. Among producers and workers, the impact of globalization has not been uniform. Increased investments, that is MNCs have increased their investment in India over the past 15 years, which means investing in India has benefited has been beneficial for them. That is why they have been investing in India. New jobs have been created, local companies are supplying raw materials, so that is again a business for them also. To these industries have prospered. Now this has also led to increased competition. Several of the top Indian companies have also been able to benefit from the increased competition, that is they have increased competition, they have also invested in newer technology, that is upgrading themselves and production methods and raised their production standards. Some have gained from successful collaboration also with foreign companies and translations into the MNCs. Many of the Indian companies have also uplifted themselves to the level of MNCs, that is multinational corporations like Ranbaxy, Tata Motors, Sundaram Fasteners and Asian Paints, to name a few which have been given in your NCERT. Globalization has enabled some larger Indian companies to emerge as multinational themselves and new opportunities, that is globalization has also created new opportunities for companies providing services, particularly those people including the IT, information technology. And now coming on to the point of adverse effects of LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. Small producers, for them it is either compete or perish. Either you compete with the local that is MNC, and because MNCs with their huge amount of wealth, upgraded technology and faster means of production, it is not possible for a small producer to compete with a MNC. So second thing is perish, that is they are wiped out. For a large number of small producers and workers, globalization has posed major challenges. Some manufacturers have been hit hard due to competition, and whereas several of the units have shut down, rendering many workers jobless. Competition and uncertain employment, because many of the MNCs like to employ workers flexibly, so again there is no job security or guarantee. As such, globalization and pressure of competition have substantially changed the lives of workers. Faced with growing competition, most employers these days prefer to employ workers flexibly. This means that workers' jobs are no longer secure. Workers have to put in very long working hours and work even night shifts on regular basis during peak season. Wages are low and workers are forced to work overtime to make both ends meet. While this competition among the garment exporters has allowed the MNCs to make large profits, Probably this you can see, if you remember class 7th, there was a chapter called A Shirt in the Market. So there the MNC used to make huge profits, whereas the people who were selling probably the raw materials or the garment manufacture unit in Delhi, they were not making much of money. So while this competition among the garment exporters has allowed the MNCs to make large profits, workers are denied their fair share of benefits brought about by globalization. Now again, therefore now the government has to step up and step in, to ensure that everything is played out in a fair manner. So therefore role of government can play in making the globalization a success. Now again here this generally many times has come also as a 5 marks question in your board exams from this chapter, that is what is the role of government in making fair globalization. So first is protecting the interest of the people. Government should prepare policies that are that should protect the interest not only of the rich as well as the powerful, but also of the other sections of the society. Labor laws should be again implemented properly. There are labor laws, but again their implementation is also at the same time necessary. Government can ensure that labor laws are properly implemented and the workers get their rights. Reserve items, that is governments can reserve some items exclusively for small producers or small scale and local producers. Investment barriers, government can also regulate the amount of trade or which is happening. If necessary, that is government can use trade and investment barriers like quota system, imports, duties, etc. Negotiation, it can negotiate with the WTO for fairer rules. And developing relationship, that is it can align with other similar developing countries and again argue for better rules at the WTO with developing countries with similar interest to fight against the domination of developed countries in the WTO. So coming to the key terms that are which have been mentioned, IT, information and communication technology, quotas, flexible employment and unorganized sector. So this brings us to the end of this chapter. Thank you so much.